Hello everyone, and welcome to Dr. Bonechill. Before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming. Also tell me, where in the world are you watching from? And is it dark outside yet? The night shift at Oakwood Memorial Hospital was always quiet. Too quiet. As a newly hired nurse, I welcomed the calm after the chaos of my previous hospital. But there was something off about the third floor. The other nurses avoided discussing it, particularly room 302. Just don't spend more time in there than you have to, my supervisor warned during orientation. I laughed it off then. 2 weeks into my job, I was assigned to the third floor. The patient in room 302 was an elderly woman named Margaret Fletcher, suffering from late-stage dementia. Her chart noted she rarely spoke and needed assistance with everything. Simple enough. The first time I entered her room, the temperature dropped noticeably. Margaret lay perfectly still in her bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling. I introduced myself as I checked her vitals, not expecting a response. "They come at 3:12, she whispered, still staring upward. I nearly dropped my stethoscope. "Excuse me?" "Every night, 3:12. They come through the walls." Her voice was unnervingly clear for someone supposedly lost in dementia. I finished my duties quickly and left, unsettled but not truly frightened. Patients with dementia often said strange things. Around 2 a.m., I was at the nurse's station catching up on charts when the call button from 302 lit up. I sighed and headed down the dimly lit hallway. Margaret was sitting upright in bed, more alert than before. "It's almost time," she said, looking at me with sudden clarity. "You shouldn't be here when they come." "Who's coming, Margaret?" She just pointed to the wall behind me. "They're hungry tonight," I humored her, checking her vitals again. "Everything's fine. Try to get some sleep." As I turned to leave, she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. They were patients too, before the fire in '74. A chill ran down my spine. There had been a fire in the hospital's East Wing in 1974. I'd read about it during orientation. 13 patients had died, trapped in their rooms. I gently removed her hand. "I'll be back to check on you later." At the nurse's station, I found myself looking up the old hospital records. The East Wing had been rebuilt after the fire. According to the floor plan, room 302 was exactly where 3 of the victims had died. At 3:10 a.m., the lights flickered briefly. The air felt suddenly heavy, charged with something I couldn't explain. Against my better judgment, I felt compelled to check on Margaret. The hallway to room 302 seemed longer now, the shadows deeper. As I approached, I heard Margaret talking, her voice alternating between frightened whimpers and eerie laughter. My watch read 3:11 a.m. when I reached her door. Through the small window, I could see her still sitting upright, but she was no longer alone. Dark figures surrounded her bed, their forms blurry and shifting like smoke. They seemed to be emerging directly through the walls. I froze, unable to move or scream. Margaret's eyes met mine through the glass, wide with terror. "I told you not to be here," she mouthed. The handle of the door began to turn slowly on its own. I finally broke from my paralysis and stumbled backward, just as something ice cold brushed against my face. I ran to the nurse's station and hit the emergency call button. When security arrived, we returned to room 302 together. Margaret sat in the exact same position, but her eyes were vacant again, her expression peaceful. The medical equipment showed she had passed away at precisely 3:12 a.m. I transferred to the day shift after that night. I never told anyone what I saw, but I noticed the night nurses had their own unspoken ritual. None of them ever passed by room 302 at 3:12 a.m. Not ever. The strangest part? In the 5 years since I've worked there, every patient assigned to that room has died, all at exactly 3:12 a.m., no matter their condition upon admission. I've requested a transfer to another hospital now, because last night, while working late, I glanced at the security monitor and noticed dark shapes moving through the hallway of the third floor. They weren't heading toward room 302 this time. They were leaving it, moving through the hospital, searching, and I swear one of them stopped, turned toward the camera and smiled. We were overjoyed when Lily was born. After years of trying, our perfect little girl finally arrived, and we took every precaution new parents could take, including buying the most advanced baby monitor on the market. It had everything: video, audio, temperature sensors, and even movement detection. The first few weeks were exhausting but blissful. Then the oddities began. It started with static, brief bursts that would interrupt the otherwise clear transmission. Our house was new, so interference seemed unlikely, but we brushed it off. Then one night, I woke to sounds coming from the monitor. Not Lily's cries, but a soft humming, almost like a lullaby, but distorted and off-key. I checked the video feed. Lily was sleeping peacefully, and no one else was in the room. "James," I nudged my husband. "Do you hear that?" By the time he was awake, the humming had stopped. "Probably just interference," he mumbled before falling back asleep. The next night I heard it again. This time I grabbed the monitor and turned up the brightness. Lily's room appeared normal, but as I watched, a dark shadow seemed to pass by the crib. Just for a second. I blinked and it was gone. I rushed to her room, heart pounding. Everything was normal. Lily slept soundly, her tiny chest rising and falling. I adjusted her blanket and checked every corner of the room. Nothing. I convinced myself it was exhaustion playing tricks on my mind. 3 nights later, James was on baby duty while I tried to catch up on sleep. Around 2 a.m., he shook me awake, his face pale. "Listen," he whispered, holding up the monitor. Through the static, a voice, neither mine nor his, was speaking. Not humming this time, but whispering words we couldn't quite make out. "It's just picking up signals from another monitor," I reasoned, but even I didn't believe that. James insisted on switching to a different brand. The new monitor worked perfectly for almost a week. Then one night, the screen flickered, showing static before clearing again. But this time, something was different. The camera angle had changed slightly higher, as if someone tall was holding it, looking down into the crib. I ran to Lily's room. The monitor was exactly where we'd left it, mounted on the wall. Lily was fine, sleeping with her favorite stuffed rabbit. But the rabbit had been on the dresser when I put her to bed. We called a technician the next day, who found nothing wrong. We even had an electrician check the house's wiring. Nothing unusual. That night I couldn't sleep. I watched the monitor obsessively, jumping at every flicker or static burst. Around midnight, the screen went black for 3 seconds. When the image returned, I saw it, a figure standing over Lily's crib. Tall, unnaturally thin, its head slightly too large for its body. As I watched in horror, it slowly reached a long, skeletal hand toward my baby. I screamed and ran to her room, flinging the door open. The room was empty except for Lily, now crying, startled by my entrance. James suggested we take turns sleeping in the nursery. For 2 nights, nothing happened. On the 3rd night, it was James's turn. I kept the monitor by my bed anyway, unable to break the habit of checking it. At 3:17 a.m., I heard James's voice through the monitor. "Honey, can you come here? Something's wrong with Lily." Half asleep, I grabbed the monitor to check the video feed before heading to the nursery. What I saw froze my blood. James was sound asleep in the chair beside the crib. Yet his voice had just called to me through the monitor. "Honey, I need you to come to the nursery. Right now." The voice was James's, but his lips weren't moving on the screen. I dialed his cell phone, watching him on the monitor. When the ringing woke him, he groggily answered, "Hello?" "Don't move," I whispered. "Someone else is in the house." We called the police, who found nothing. No signs of forced entry, nothing missing. They suggested our monitor had picked up interference from another device. We got rid of all baby monitors after that, taking turns staying in Lily's room instead. 2 weeks later, while cleaning, I found something behind the dresser in Lily's room. Our original monitor, which we'd thrown away. It was switched on, connected to nothing. The screen cracked, but glowing faintly. And through the static, I could just make out our living room. The view was from our new security camera, the one we'd installed after discarding the baby monitors. We moved out the next day, but sometimes I still wake in the middle of the night, certain I can hear humming coming from somewhere in our new house. A distorted and wrong lullaby. And I wonder what came through the monitor that night, and if it followed us here. Growing up in rural Oregon, the woods behind our house were my playground. My parents warned me never to go past the old stone wall that cut through the forest about a mile in, but they never explained why. It's dangerous, they'd say. People get lost. Standard parent talk. By the time I was 16, I knew those woods like the back of my hand, or at least the section up to the wall. I'd never been beyond it, respecting that boundary more out of habit than fear. That changed when my cousin Marcus came to stay with us for the summer. Marcus was from the city and found our small town painfully boring. When I mentioned the forbidden woods, his eyes lit up with mischief. "What do you think is back there?" he asked. I shrugged. "More trees? Maybe a ravine or something." "Let's find out," he said with a grin that spelled trouble. I resisted at first, but curiosity won out. The next day we packed snacks and water, telling my parents we were going to the creek. Close enough to the truth that the lie didn't feel too heavy. The hike to the wall was familiar, comforting. The wall itself was nothing special, perhaps 4 feet high, made of stacked stones that had partially collapsed in places. No signs, no fence wire, nothing to really keep anyone out. "This is it? This is the big, scary boundary?" Marcus laughed. Without waiting for me, he hopped over the wall. After a moment's hesitation, I followed. The woods on the other side looked the same at first, the same pine and oak mixture, the same undergrowth. But as we walked, I noticed subtle differences. The birds grew quieter. The light filtering through the canopy seemed slightly dimmer, though the day was clear. "Do you notice anything weird?" I asked Marcus. "Just that you're paranoid," he smirked. We continued for maybe 20 minutes before Marcus pointed to something ahead, a small cabin, partially reclaimed by nature. Vines crawled up its walls and part of the roof had collapsed. "Jackpot," he said. "Let's check it out." The cabin was a single room, long abandoned. Dust covered everything, undisturbed except for small animal tracks. A rusty bed frame stood in one corner, a wood stove in another. A table held the remains of what might have been a journal, the pages too rotted to read. Why would someone build out here, I wondered aloud. Marcus shrugged, already losing interest. Hermit, probably, or a hunter. As he examined the stove, I noticed something carved into the wooden door frame. A strange symbol, like a tree but with twisted branches that formed a pattern too symmetrical to be natural. Below it, barely legible words. "It knows you're here." A chill ran through me. "Marcus, I think we should go." He ignored me, having found something under the bed, a metal box. Inside was a single item, a small leather pouch. "Don't open that," I said, but Marcus already had, revealing what looked like teeth, too large for any animal I recognized, arranged in a circle. "Creepy," he said, putting them back. "Some kind of occult stuff." That's when we heard it, a sound like branches breaking, but rhythmic, almost like footsteps, but too heavy, too spread apart to be human. "Probably a deer," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its confidence. We left the cabin, heading back the way we came. At least we thought it was the way we came. Nothing looked familiar anymore. The sounds continued, always just out of sight. The forest had grown darker, though my watch said it was only mid-afternoon, and the air had taken on a sour smell, like rotting vegetation. After an hour of walking, we should have reached the wall. Instead, we found ourselves in a clearing we hadn't passed before. In the center stood a circle of stones, each carved with the same twisted tree symbol from the cabin. "We're going in circles," I said, panic rising. "No, we've been going straight," Marcus insisted, though I could see fear in his eyes now. The cracking sound came again, closer this time, and with it, a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the ground into my bones. We ran, no longer caring about direction, just away from the sound. The forest blurred around us, branches whipping our faces. Marcus fell once, scrambling up with mud-covered hands, eyes wild. "Don't look back," he gasped as we ran. "Whatever you do, don't look back." Of course, that made me want to look back more than anything. When the urge became unbearable, I glanced over my shoulder. Through the trees, something moved. Something tall and dark that bent unnaturally as it walked. I couldn't make out details, just a sense of wrong proportions, of limbs too long and too many. I ran faster than I thought possible, blind with terror. Somehow, miraculously, we stumbled upon the wall again. We practically dove over it, collapsing on the other side, gasping for breath. The sound stopped immediately. The forest on our side of the wall was bright with late afternoon sun, birds singing as if nothing had happened. We made our way home in silence, agreed on a cover story about getting lost, and never spoke of what happened again. Marcus went back to the city a week later. For years, I convinced myself we had imagined it all, gotten spooked by normal forest sounds and let our imaginations run wild. Then last month, a package arrived from Marcus. Inside was the leather pouch with the teeth and a note. It followed me home. Never stopped. It's waiting for you too. I tried calling him, but his number was disconnected. When I contacted his parents, they told me Marcus had disappeared 3 weeks earlier. His apartment was empty, except for strange symbols carved into the walls. Symbols like twisted trees. Last night, I heard branches breaking outside my window. When I looked out, nothing was there. But this morning, I found muddy footprints on my porch. Too large, too far apart to be human. And on my door, carved sometime in the night, that same symbol from the cabin. It knows where I am. And I think I've always known why my parents warned me about the wall. It wasn't to keep us out of those woods. It was to keep something in. Thanks for joining me here at Dr. Bonechill. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay safe.